so you can listen to the sound of silence. So that's where Simon and Garfunkel got that title, for those of you that know who Simon and Garfunkel are. Now, one thing with the Tibetan bell is that if you hold the sides, it won't ring, so you have to let go. Also, if you hit it really quickly, it's disrespectful, so you learn how to listen to the sound. Isn't that a beautiful sound? And if you drop a Tibetan bell on the ground, on concrete, it will never ring again. Ah, you're so gullible. Okay, here, let's begin. Another Chinese myth. So, hello, everybody. Man, I just went down to your cafeteria, and I thought you had to pay for every dish. So I ate sparingly. Then I found out you could eat as much as you wanted, and I got really excited. No, I'm just kidding. I was wondering what to say to you today. And because I never planned for any of my keynotes. And I remembered as a child, the first time I went to school, and I was just like 4 years old, I guess. And I was so excited. And I had this beautiful orange box. And in it, I put lap cheong, which is steamed pork, siu gai, which is steamed chicken, bak fan, which is steamed rice. Oh my, I'm getting hungry again. And I brought my beautiful orange chopsticks, which I got as a gift. And I brought it to school. And I remember they had all these little cubby holes. And there was no way I was going to put my food in a cubby hole because I was afraid someone was going to steal it. So I put it underneath my desk. And I was just so excited. I was thinking about, at lunchtime I could hardly wait to share it with all the other kids. And then one by one the kids came in, and they started to say things like this, "Ooh, what's that smell?" And I kept thinking, as a 4-year-old kid, somebody farted. But then after a while, a lot of the students started saying that. And then I realized they were talking about my food. And I had my jacket still underneath my desk, and I covered my food with my jacket. And then when the bell rang, all the kids went out for lunch, and I went out to lunch with the kids. And then I told the teacher, I forgot something. She goes, well, go back in there, shut the door when you get done, and come on out. But what I did was, I took my box, and I threw it in the garbage can. And it was not until years later that I realized when I got home, I told my mother I wanted bologna sandwiches and peanut butter sandwiches. But it was not until I got older did I realize that I had thrown away more than just my food. Because my food represented a lot of who I was. And I was so excited to share with the other students. But then I realized in all of the years I went to school, even when I graduated college, I was voted the most outstanding student teacher, and later on the most outstanding graduate in San Francisco State University. But in all of those honors that they gave me, not once was I ever asked, as a person who's getting, Paul, we demand the rest of the world speak English. There's something wrong with that image. And as a country that prides itself on multiculturalism, you have the whole world here. How many languages have you learned? How many cultures come into your home? How many of them do you integrate into your teaching methods? The way you do administration? The way we run this country? A variety of ways of doing things are sitting here. And the only way I'm going to learn about how to do something different is I just got to have an opportunity to meet you. So look around the room. without saying a single word. You're going to pick somebody who you don't know and who's different than you. So gather up all your belongings and all your food and everything and walk towards somebody you don't know and who's different than you. Okay, why don't you pair up? Great. So sit down with your partner. Don't say a word. Turn your chair and totally turn and face your partner. Yeah, why don't you two take those two chairs? Turn your chair and face your partner. You don't realize how long it took for me to get these chairs to be unlocked. Major legislation. Okay. All right, take your chair and totally face your partner. Okay. Now, no 45-degree angles. Totally turn and face each other. Okay, good. Put everything in your hand and put it on the floor. Okay. Don't let this guy put you up. There you go. All right. Sit down with your partner. You have to be in a group of two. Okay, shh. Just see what it's like to not say anything. Now, all my students in my newest film, If These Halls Could Talk, which I'm hoping someday you'll see my newest film, and that is, they said walking into a classroom, walking in the cafeteria is like walking through a gauntlet. Jesse Jackson said the most segregated time in America is on Sunday. Nah, it's at lunchtime. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And people are always checking each other out, aren't they? They'll make all sorts of assumptions, don't they? So this is what I want you to do. I want you to turn to your partner, and you are going to check them out. I want you to take a look at your partner's shoes. Don't say anything. Take a look at their shoes. Why don't you pair it with him? That's okay. Go ahead. Pair it with him. And now take a look at their clothing. The pants, blouse, top, jacket, things like this. Don't look away. Keep looking at your partner. Some of you you're really scared to look at your partner. Because the truth of it is, you were sneaking looks anyway. Yeah. So keep looking at them. Now take a look at their face. Shh. Just look at their face. Don't say anything. Look at their eyes, hair. And what has this country told you is beautiful and what is not? Yeah. I remember when I was on Oprah Winfrey's show, she did a 1-hour special on my life. And she said, I'm going to straighten my hair. Woo! That's when I went off on her. I said, why? Your hair looks beautiful. See, I don't know how many black women tell me they straighten their hair. The next day they come back to work and they go, oh, your hair looks so beautiful. The question becomes wasn't it beautiful yesterday? Yeah. Take a look how beautiful hair looks. Would you mind standing for a moment? Raise your hand if you believe it's beautiful. Raise your hand. And you know, what if I told you she's the world's greatest graphic artist? And she went to Disney Studios in Florida. And they said, oh, we know all about you. Woo. Heard you're so famous. Everybody at Trinity College thinks you look beautiful. And then she said, well, how about it? But Disney Studios would say, I'm sorry, we can't hire you. Because unknown to the public, you cannot have your hair the way she has it. Yeah. In Ross Perot, who ran for the presidency of the United States, you cannot wear anything that is ethnic. Women cannot wear pants, even in winter. But we didn't ask him too many questions. But he doesn't write it down in Ross Perot's company. He kind of goes like this. Hi. Hey, I heard you're new in our company. And I really want to tell you, you're doing a really great job. And I want to let you know that we really work with a lot of really important clients. It's important to look professional in our clothing and in our hair. And I know you want to get ahead in our company. Thank you. See how it's very subtle and not so subtle? Yes. You see, sometimes in our country, we don't ask too many questions. And now that you know that about Disney Studios, would you be willing to do something about it? Or would it be enough just to tell somebody, did you hear about Disney Studios? And all those people who didn't get jobs will wonder, why didn't you say something? Oh, I see. Not until it's your son or daughter. Then you might get mad. Or maybe one of those people who doesn't get hired comes back with a gun. Then we might pay attention. Why are we so crisis-oriented or don't act until it's happening to us? You see, that's what happened in Germany. Well, it's not happening to me. Oh, the Germans could smell something funny, but they just thought it was a barbecue. How did we decide not to look at the Japanese being interned? Why, we saw reels showing them playing in the desert, building gardens. Oh, the Japanese must love it. Oh. And then S.I. Hayakawa said, Senator S.I. Hayakawa said, yes, they're having great, we loved it at the camps. So then we believe it. And all I usually say to people is, then you should live in the camps for 5 years. Lose your home. Be separated from your partner. Lose everything. And then see what it's like. It's not coming out stronger. It's being angry why some people are treated differently than you. So as you're looking at your partner, I'd like you to tell your partner, after I knock the heck out of this cup down here, I'd like you to tell your partner 3 assumptions that you've already made about your partner just by looking at them. Now, some of you are going like this, oh my God. Now, you're going to do like this. You're going to tell your partner one assumption that you've made about them just by looking at them, and then you're going to find out if it's true or not. So it might look like this. So, Manoir, when I look at you, I wonder if you do martial arts. And I always tell people, I am one bad dude. Yes. Or I might say, I don't know why you thought that. I can't even do ping pong. I'm just, I could barely do sports. So then I could tell you it's not true. So you get to find out if it's true or not. Okay? So I also want you to think about the assumptions that you're afraid to tell the other person that you made about them. And then find out if it's true or not, to say, okay, I hate it that I thought this, but I was wondering about this, okay? Or as I was working with students at another college, I said the one thing they wanted to find out was they asked a black young woman who had hair like yours, they went, okay, I'm scared, but I'm going to ask the question. Do you wash your hair? The other one was, can I touch it? She said, if you want your hand back. Yeah, you can touch it. Then he had to ask her why. So all of this is, it's okay. You're going to say something that's going to upset your partner, and you'll live. And your partner might be going, whew, I could tell the way you were looking at me, that's what you were thinking. So you get it out in the open. Okay? All right. Now, after you do your assumption to him, you get to do it the other way around. Okay? You get to do back the assumption over here and then check out if it's true or not. All right? Now, what it is we all have assumptions, but we don't talk about them. Okay? Then you get to check out if it's true or not. All right? And the person who will start the first assumption, because you'll do 1, and you'll do the number 1 to go number 2. The person with the shortest hair will start. Ready, begin. take one more minute. Okay, take a breath. How many of you, most of your assumptions were right? Raise your hand. If most of your assumptions were right about this person, please raise your hand if some of them were right. Please raise your hand if you were afraid to tell your partner your assumptions. Somebody once said that every day we tell 26 lies. Wonder how far you've gotten today. How many of you were afraid to hear other people's assumptions of you? Yeah, now we're getting down there. How many of you believe that assumptions can affect whether or not a person thinks you're safe, intelligent, should get a promotion? Yeah. So you could see that when we don't check out our assumptions and we simply pick up our stereotypes or what we've heard from the media, from other people, it could deeply affect people's lives. Yeah. So let's get a little bit deeper with each other, okay? Partly because of the shortness of time, but also because sometimes we could always get deeper with somebody, but it all depends on the question we decide to ask. So what I'd like to do is have you take a look at the screen. When others look at you, what do they see? Woo! As a, whatever that might be. Black, Latina, woman, white, older, younger. What don't they see and why? What do you wish that they would see and why? And if others wanted to see the real you, what do you need or want from them for that to happen? I wrote this down because all of my life, as a student, as a therapist and educator, I wish somebody had asked me these questions as a Chinese American man. Because I have tried so hard to be viewed intelligent, worthy to have an opinion, worthy for someone else to believe that my culture is just as relevant as the one in this country that is dominant. And I believe that voice is still waiting to be heard in the year 2017. I believe that was the dream that Malcolm had, that Martin had, that Mother Teresa, Muhammad Ali, and so many others. And so today, I'd like you, that the person who's going to begin this time will be the person who has the longest hair. And you will share what we do not see as a. Now, for instance, you're having the longest hair, so why don't you switch seats with him so you could face the screen. And so if you have the longest hair, make sure you're facing the screen so you don't have to turn around to see it. You get 5 full minutes, and guess what? The other person will simply hear you. Can you hear that? Not interrupt, not take you where they want to go, but simply listen to your answers. No notes, just fully listening, okay? The person with the longest hair, ready, begin. You get 5 full minutes. And by the way, if you happen to finish up your 5 minutes real fast, count to 30 seconds if you're the listener, and then I'd like you to ask them these 2 questions. Did you leave anything out? That's called the Nixon template question. That's a joke, everybody who knows Richard M. Nixon. And the second one is, was that the truth? And when someone said to me once, was that the truth, Benoit? I said, nope. There's one truth I tell whites. There's one truth I tell people of color. There's one truth I tell at work or on my campus. There's another truth I tell at home. When we will have arrived as a country, is that we could tell at work the truth we tell at home. that we could tell people who do not look like us and tell the truth of what we tell people who look like us and be valued and be promoted and be acknowledged for that truth, then we will have arrived as a country to grow. Not from giving people what they want to hear, but what we need to hear if we ever want to come together as a country. That is my definition of making America great. Not just for a small group of people, but for every single one of us. Ready, begin. Yeah. Take one more minute. And so, exactly. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is, even though this is in all of your materials already, I wrote a paper once, how to have a successful town hall meeting, now that we've learned how not to do one. And what I meant by that was, we have people come up to a microphone, then they share, and they go, thank you, next person, thank you, next person. But we never work with what they just said, to go deeper. I'd like to propose that every time something happens on your campus, you could either react to it and get really good and angry, or you could say something like this. In my newest film, the black student said, sometimes I feel like I just want to kill white people. And I remember when I filmed it, and I met with him personally, and I said, I know you're going for your doctorate. Someday someone is going to play this excerpt, and it'll cost you your job, maybe even your reputation or your life. And what he said to me, I will never forget, he's only 24 years old. If it will save someone's life, Benoit, then it needs to stay in the film. And so I said to audiences who saw that part when he says, I feel like I want to kill white people. And I often say this, and I'll say it here. Please raise your hand if you're really glad that he said it rather than did it. Raise your hand. Yeah. And then I said, if he said, sometimes I feel like I want to kill white people, what would be a good question to ask him? That's it. We have forgotten to ask, tell me what your experiences are that have brought you to that place. In that film, The Great Debaters, great film, in which on the way to the debaters, all these black debaters, he sees a young black man hung and burned to death. And the moment they see all of them in the car, the Ku Klux Klan comes after them. And then he has to go to the debate. And the debate is, should we be talking about racism now? And they said, it's not the right time. It riles people up. And then when he gets up to give his speech, what he says is, today I saw something on the road I have never seen that only my father talked about. The time to talk about racism is always right now. And thank God for each of you that I choose to talk about my experience than to pick up a gun, because I have every right to defend myself. And I will never forget that line. And that's why I believe even in this workshop today, this is not just a fun question I asked you, but it affects people's lives and their children, and they watch their families. And so what can we do when someone shares their story? We could ask this question. Tell me more. What I heard you say was that you feel like you want to kill white people. The second one is, tell me more about what you meant by that. And then maybe they'll tell you their experience. And the next one you could ask is, what angered you when that happened to you as a black man? The third one, what hurt you about that? Because underneath, I do not believe that anger is a primary emotion. I think hurt is. When hurt is unacknowledged or invalidated, it becomes anger. So when that black live student says, why do I have to become belligerent before you hear me? Is that we have to understand is that when people are not believed, they get angry. Your work is to be open to hearing another truth outside of your own. And the next one, which I taught mediators all over the world, is the past tense question is, what's familiar about what happened? How did that affect you? And how does it affect you today? If it happens to you 50 times, one day you just explode. You see, every person who picks up a gun, it's not the first time they felt this anger. It's maybe the 40th or 50th time. But the question is, what happened? Did we hear them? Did we believe them? What's their life experience that made them feel? Why is it in this country that people pick up guns rather than talk to each other? They would rather go to war than talk to each other. Martin Luther King said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I have never met anybody that you shoot their parents, that they come back with open arms wanting to work with you. But it does happen when Mahatma Gandhi said to a general, why are you so afraid? He goes, I am not afraid. And he said, then why do you need a gun? And he put down his gun and he followed Mahatma Gandhi. What you're doing is perhaps the greatest revolutionary act you could do, is to face someone and begin the conversation. This exercise I had you do, what you do not see, which you've been doing. Imagine doing this in Ferguson. A black young man telling them, when people look at you, what do they see? A police officer saying what it feels like to have the community look at him, but then find out why they see him that way. All of that would be a way revolutionary to hear each other's story and how it affects us when we come up against each other. And the last one is, what do you need or want? So what I'd like you to turn to your partner and tell your partner one thing you heard them say that was important to them. Not what was important to you, but one thing you heard them say. And then say, tell me more about that. What angered you? What hurt you? Use their first names. Ready, begin. The listener is telling your partner what they heard. Did your partner leave? I know. Yeah, unfortunately, I started 10 minutes, 15 minutes later. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'd be, yeah. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
I saw Color years ago.
Oh.
Just what I would love to do is how could we work on that level in an institution like this, but not just do it as a one-off, but
Yeah.
make sure we get everybody engaged and then do it on a sustainable basis.
Yeah, actually, I was hoping to talk to the president about coming back to work with the faculty, how they could do it in their classes. Because I think it's not enough to do it with the students. You need to do it with the faculty to learn. Because I was not trained as a teacher how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I teach and I never took a class on
Yeah,
how to
right.
teach.
Yeah.
You know?
And how do you teach on diversity issues on top when it starts happening right in front of your face?
So I'd be all for that.
Oh, great. That would be wonderful. Yeah.
I teach world music, and so
Oh.
I try to touch on.
So you get to see how beautiful the world sounds
Yeah,
all over the world.
Well, but also just to try to get people in touch with not bringing their pre-loaded baggage to other cultures, you know, and to really be.
Or maybe even noticing that they're doing that.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I just say you guys have a built-in aesthetic preference judgment system.
Right. Because it's all built all around them. That this is what beautiful music should sound like.
Because you also have these judgments. You say, this is great. I loved it. I hated it. You're not even aware that you do that. You know?
Exactly.
And so, like, what do you do with music you love? You say, hey, check this out. You know.
Right.
And music.
Exactly.
Right.
And what really basically do is now you get a chance to check someone else out.
Right.
Another
Exactly.
world, huh? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. We're slowly running out of time. Now, what I'd like you to do is, before we have you switch, is I would like you to tell your partner if you thought they were a good listener and how they could improve. Okay? Now, this is learning how to give each other feedback. I think this country doesn't know how to tell another person the truth sometimes. So it might look like this. Well, it was a really good question you asked me, then I said this, and you didn't go deeper. And I wish you would have gone. And I said a couple things I wish you had talked about, asked me about, because they were really there. That helps a person get better at this. I don't know how many white folks tell me all over this country is, so what do people of color want from us? Men going, what do women want from us? Straight people, what do gays want from us? Well, you need to pick up the cues, because they're talking all the time about what they need and want. So now tell your partner, how you thought they did when they asked you questions, and what they could improve on. Ready, begin. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
You should be very
Thank you.
honored.
I'm a pride leader, so I work for her, and we all about inclusion and diversity on campus.
I'd love to come back.
Yes, I want you to come back at least every year.
Oh,
Here. So hopefully I'll ask them for your contact information.
Okay, good.
And more things.
Great,
But
thank you
so
very much.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I know, I'm sorry because we started off about 15 minutes late, I know your second partner hasn't had a chance to share, okay? So aren't you lucky? If you choose, you could have lunch with them tomorrow and finish this up. Can you hear that? Because a relationship like this takes a lifetime. If we were ever going to end racism in this country, in my book, Let's Get Real, and by the way, the thing came about, well, I have the book over there, but it started off with collecting questions that people were afraid to ask each other. I collected over 5,000 questions in a book in this box, and I got it down to 1,000 questions that whites and people of color are deathly afraid to ask each other, so they wrote it down anonymously. And then in my book that came out 2 years after the box of questions, 150 whites and people of color answered those questions. And people in Texas, Florida, Georgia have bought 400 each. Because when people of color are in their classes and they're surrounded by whites, they're afraid to talk. But then they go like this when they open up my book. This is me right here. And when white people are afraid to bring it up, they go, this is me right here in the book. So I really encourage you. That book is one of the hottest books, but it opens up an incredible conversation that you might be afraid to get to. And in your materials, it's half off. But what I want to share with you is this. How many of you enjoy getting to know your partner? Raise your hand. Do you know that if I had not asked you to pair it up, you would never have gotten to meet this person? Why aren't we having this same conversation in our classes? And it's not just simply, oh, just talk to each other. But it's learning how to guide it so you become curious. I would like to say to this President of the United States, why aren't you ever asking one single question that's of curiosity? You see, I think that what we've learned, not just with this president, but we're getting to a place that we're teaching how to be adversarial, defensive, in denial. What we are not teaching is how to be curious, self-reflective, taking responsibility, a willingness to change. You see that last part? A willingness to change. Nobody will tell you the truth if they don't sense you're willing to be open and to change. And we have got to start teaching our students, our teachers, our institutions to be curious, to take responsibility, to look at themselves. Your generation has the opportunity. You are the next leaders. I just saw a film called Dolores. You may not know her. She worked with Cesar Chavez. And she was incredible. She created that term, yes, we can. But it was attributed to him, not her. Then President Barack Obama gave her an award, and he tried to say that in his campaign, and he said, I found out today that Dolores said it, not Cesar. One more time. But what she said was, when things get really hard, that is when we need to stand up. There are so many that face far more difficult times than we did. Every time you are silent, every time you simply bring it inside and not go out in the world to make a change, someone will pay a price for your silence. I'm here today because, as I shared with the President's Cabinet, I was a wonderful teacher. God, I loved my kids. So why did I leave teaching? Because one day, one of the students at our school, 15 years before I became a teacher, he was caught in the bathroom gambling. Rather than work with him, they decided to transfer him. He grabbed a hold of the bathroom door, screaming and crying, please don't do that to me. My family and my friends live here. But they did anyway. And 15 years later, God knows what happened to him. He broke into a woman's home in a robbery and shot her 5 times in the head. And then he killed 3 other women. The woman he shot 5 times in the head was my mother. I was never the same again. What haunted me is that I was supposed to be in the house that day with her, but I was called away to a meeting. I was literally traumatized for 3 years. I eventually went into therapy and became a therapist, and eventually working with men who were violent and onto the issues of race. It was not a life that I thought I was going to end up doing. I went on to do a film called The Color of Fear, which then won the best documentary, and then the rest was history. But I remember when I was standing in front of 600 people at a National Armory, and I told this same story. And out of the audience, a woman stood up and said, oh my God, it was my son who killed your mother. And I got off the stage, cried in her arms for her son as she cried for my mother. I have often wondered all these many years, what if someone had simply said, no, we're not going to transfer you, Anthony. I want to take a look at how we failed you. Come here, son. I want to hear your story of your family, what you've had to go through. Perhaps my life would have been different. I think every day we lose people. We are rapidly losing this country, its sense of hope and connection to each other. It will take this to do this. It will take your willingness to continue the conversation. It will take you walking across the room to say to somebody, I'm really scared, but I want to start the conversation. For you, for me, and for my family, and for us. I think that was the world that Martin was dreaming of. I was thinking that that was what Malcolm wanted. And I think that it is true. If you don't do it, who will? If you don't do it now, when will you ever decide to do it? There is no right time, but right now is the best time. And that's why I came here. And in my lifetime, I would like to see the world I wanted to see for my children and for your children. I hope that you will continue this conversation with someone. The questions you saw on that screen are all in your packet. In there is also 21 ways to stop a diversity conversation within seconds. Why is that important? Because everyone is saying them. We haven't learned why they stop people. In there is also ways that could continue the conversation in your classrooms with each other. And also techniques I would love for you to read. Today was just the beginning I would love to come back. When I was younger, my father used to say to me, I work really hard when Mom, I barely see you because I want to make it a better world. And then I started saying that to my son as I traveled across this country. I can't see you as often as I'd like because I want to make this a better world. The truth of it really is that I do not believe I will see it in my lifetime. But I want my son not to say that to his son and daughter, but to see that world in his lifetime. So it will take you and I to make that dream real in his lifetime and in yours, I think. As a country that prides itself on multiculturalism, you have the whole world here. How many languages have you learned? How many cultures come into your home? How many of them do you integrate into your teaching methods? The way you do administration, the way we run this country. A variety of ways of doing things are sitting here. The only way I'm going to learn how to do something different is I just got to have an opportunity to teach. So look around the room. Without saying a single word, you're going to pick somebody you don't know and who's different than you. So gather up all your belongings and all your food and everything and walk towards somebody you don't know and who's different than you. So sit down with your partner, don't say a word, turn your chair, and totally turn and face your partner. Turn your chair and face your partner. You don't realize how long it took for me to get these chairs to be unlocked. Major legislation. Okay. All right, take your chair and totally face your partner. Okay. Now, no 45-degree angles. Totally turn and face each other. Okay, good. Put everything in your hand and put it on the floor. There you go. All right. Sit down with your partner. You have to be in a group of two. Okay, shh. Just see what it's like to not say anything. Now, all my students in my newest film, If These Halls Could Talk, which I'm hoping someday you'll see my newest film, and that is, they said walking into a classroom, walking in the cafeteria is like walking through a conflict. Jesse Jackson said the most segregated time in America is on Sunday. Yeah, it's at lunchtime. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And people are always checking each other out, aren't they? Now make all sorts of assumptions, don't they? This is what I want you to do. I want you to turn to your partner, and you are going to check them out. I want you to take a look at your partner's shoes. Don't say anything. Take a look at their shoes. That's okay. Bear with him. And now take a look at their clothing. The pants, blouse, top, jacket, things like this. Don't look away. Just look at your partner. Some of you look, you're really scared to look at your partner. Because the truth of it is, they were sneaky looks anyway. Yeah. So keep looking at them. Now take a look at their face. Let's look at their face. Don't say anything. Look at their eyes, hair. And what has this country told you is beautiful and what is not? Yeah. Remember when I was on Oprah Winfrey show, she did a 1-hour special on my life. And she said, I'm going to straighten my hair. Woo! That's when I went off on her. I said, why? Your hair looks beautiful. See, I don't know how many black women tell me they straighten their hair. Next day they come back to work and they go, ooh, your hair looks so beautiful. The question becomes is, wasn't it beautiful yesterday? Yeah. Take a look how beautiful her hair looks. Would you mind standing for a moment? Raise your hand if you believe it's beautiful. Raise your hand. And, you know, what if I told you she's the world's greatest graphic artist? And she went to Disney Studios in Florida. And she said, they said, oh, we know all about you. Woo. Heard you so famous. Everybody at Trinity College said you look beautiful. And then she said, well, how about it? The Disney Studios would say, I'm sorry, we can't hire you. Because unknown to the public, you cannot have your hair the way she has it. Yeah. In Ross Perot, who ran for the presidency of the United States, you cannot wear anything that is ethnic. Women cannot wear pants, even in winter. We didn't ask him too many questions. But he doesn't write it down in Ross Perot's company. He kind of goes like this. Hi. Hey, I heard you're new in our company. And I really want to tell you you're doing a really great job. And I want to let you know that we really work with a lot of really important clients. It's important to look professional in our clothing and in our hair. And I know you want to get ahead in our company. Thank you. See how that's very subtle and not so subtle? Yes. You see, sometimes in our country we don't ask too many questions. And now that you know that about Disney Studios, would you be willing to do something about it? Or would it be enough just to tell somebody, did you hear about Disney Studios? And all those people who didn't get jobs will wonder, why did you say something? Oh, I see. Not until it's your son or daughter. Then you might get mad. Or maybe one of those people who doesn't get hired comes back with a gun. Then we might pay attention. Why are we so crisis-oriented? Or don't act until it's happening to us? See, that's what happened in Germany. It's not happening to me. Oh, the Germans could smell something funny, but they just thought it was a barbecue. How did we decide not to look at the Japanese being interned? Why, we saw reels showing them playing in the desert, building gardens. Oh, the Japanese must love it. Oh. And then S.I. Hayakawa said, Senator S.I. Hayakawa said, yes, they're having great, we loved it at the camps. So then we believe it. And all I usually say to people is, then you should live in the camps for 5 years. Right? Lose your home. Be separated from your partner. Lose everything. And then see what it's like. It's not coming out stronger. It's being angry why some people are treated differently. So as you're looking at your partner, I'd like you to tell your partner, after I knock the heck out of this cup is I'd like you to tell your partner 3 assumptions that you've already made about your partner just by looking at them. Now, some of you are like, oh my God. Now, do it like this. You're going to tell your partner 1 assumption that you made about them just by looking at them, and then you're going to find out if it's true or not. So it might look like this. So, Mom, when I look at you, I wonder if you do martial arts. I always tell people, I don't want that too. And, or I might say, I don't know why you thought that. I can't even play ping pong. I'm just, I can barely do sports. So then I can tell you it's not true. So you get to find out if it's true or not. Okay? So I also want you to think about the assumption that you're afraid to tell the other person that you made about them. And then find out if it's true or not. To say, okay, I hate it that I thought this, but I was wondering about this, okay? Or as I was working with students at another college, I said, the one thing they wanted to find out was, they asked a black young woman who had hair like hers, they went, okay, I'm scared, but I'm going to ask the question. Do you wash your hair? The other one was, can I touch it? She said, if you want your hand back. You touch it. Then he had to ask her why. So all of this is, it's okay. You're going to say something that's going to upset your partner, and you'll live. And your partner might be going, whew, I can tell the way you're looking at me, that's what you were thinking. So you get it out in the open. Okay? All right. Now after you do your assumption to him, You get to do it the other way around, okay? You get to keep back the assumption over here and then check out if it's true or not. All right? Now, what it is we all have assumptions, but we don't talk about it, okay? Then you get to check out if it's true or not, all right? And the person who will start the first assumption, because you do one, you go do the number one, you go to number two. The person with the shortest hair will start. Ready, begin. One more minute. Okay, take a breath. How many of you, most of your assumptions were right? Raise your hand. Most of your assumptions were right about this person. Please raise your hand if some of them were right. Please raise your hand if you were afraid to tell your partner your assumptions. Somebody once said that every day we tell 26 lies. I don't know how far you've gotten today. How many of you were afraid to hear other people's assumptions on you? Yeah, now we're getting down there. How many of you believe that assumptions can affect whether or not a person thinks you're safe? Intelligent? Should get a promotion? Yeah. So you can see that when we don't check out our assumptions, and we simply pick up our stereotypes of what we've heard from the media, from other people, it can deeply affect people's lives. Yeah. So let's get a little bit deeper with each other, okay? Partly because of the shortness of time, but also because sometimes you can always get deeper with somebody, but it all depends on the question we decide to ask. So what I'd like to do is have you take a look at the screen. When others look at you, what do they see? Woo! As a, whatever that might be. Black, Latina, woman, white, older, younger. What don't they see and why? What do you wish that they would see and why? And if others wanted to see the real you, what do you need or want for them for that to happen? I wrote this down because all of my life, as a student, as a therapist and educator, I get somebody to ask me these questions as a Chinese American man. Because I have tried so hard to be viewed intelligent, worthy to have an opinion, worthy for someone else to believe that my culture is just as relevant as the one in this country that is dominant. And I believe that voice is still waiting to be heard in the year 2017. I believe that was the dream that Malcolm had, that Martin had, that Mother Teresa, Muhammad Ali, and so many others. So today, I'd like you, that the person who's going to begin this time will be the person who has the longest hair. And you will share what we do not see as a. Now, for instance, you're having the longest hair, so why don't you switch seats with him so you can face the screen. And so if you have the longest hair, make sure you're facing the screen so you don't have to turn around to see it. You get 5 full minutes. And guess what? The other person will simply hear you. Can you hear that? Not interrupt, not take you where they want to go, but simply listen to your answers. No notes, just fully listen. Okay? Person with the longest hair, ready, begin. You get 5 full minutes. And by the way, if you happen to finish up your 5 minutes real fast, count to 30 seconds if you're the listener, and then I'd like to ask them these 2 questions. Did you leave anything out? That's called the Nixon template question. That's a joke, everybody. The second one is, was that the truth? And when someone said to me once, was that the truth, Benoit? I said, nope. There's one truth I tell whites. There's one truth I tell people of color. There's one truth I tell at work or on my campus. There's another truth I tell at home. When we will arrive as a country, is that we can tell at work the truth we tell at home. That we can tell people who do not look like us and tell the truth of what we tell people who look like us and be valued and be promoted and be acknowledged for that truth. Then we will arrive as a country to grow. Not from giving people what they want to hear, but what we need to hear if we ever want to come together as a country. That is my definition of making America great. Not just for a small group of people, but for every single one of us. Ready, begin.